This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Hewlett.
And today it is all about Money in the Bank. We're kind of going back to our roots a little bit here. We're going to talk about Money in the Bank 2019 from last year. And then later on, we're going to give you our predictions for Money in the Bank 2020, which comes your way tomorrow evening.
Yeah, it's kind of fitting, I think, that we wouldn't be able to get an episode out of the prediction show. So I think it makes sense to go back to what, brought us to the dance, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 6 matches advertised for tomorrow, so yeah, we're not going to get a full half hour out of that. So we thought it'd be kind of interesting to take a look back at last year's Money in the Bank and kind of, give you an idea of how things have changed in 1 year's time.
Yeah, and like I said, it's kind of nostalgic for us, too, where this is kind of how our format started. I know it's kind of morphed into different incarnations of the show, but this is what we kind of built our show upon to begin with. So it's nice to go back and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, let's get started here. We got quite a bit of matches to talk about. There was 12 matches on the card if you count the one on the pre-show. And speaking of that pre-show match, you have the Usos getting a win over Daniel Bryan and Rowan in about 11 minutes. This was back when Daniel Bryan was doing his Save the Earth kind of Planet's Champion gimmick.
This is fresh off the Planet's Champion gimmick. He just lost the title to Kofi at WrestleMania. But yeah, same premise anyways. But yeah.
Yep. And then we start off the actual show with the Money in the Bank women's match. And Bayley will get a win here over Carmella, Dana Brooke, Ember Moon, Mandy Rhodes, Naomi, Natalya, and Nikki Cross in about about just under 14 minutes here.
Yeah, it was pretty much a 9-person match if you count Sonya Deville.
Yeah.
She got involved towards the end. It was weird, too, and I couldn't remember how many people they had in the match, and I'm watching it I started watching it last night, and they're doing all the entrances, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, how many people are in this match? And they just kept coming. I'm like, wow. There's 8, because this year they only have six people in each match.
Yep, they have 6 people in each match. Yeah, but last year they had, it was, like you said, 8. So that can kind of get a little bit clustery with that many people, but I actually thought this match went over pretty well. I thought the finish was kind of unique, where you had Sonya Deville trying to carry Mandy Rhodes up the ladder to help her get the belt, but then Bayley comes over and knocks them off and grabs it.
Yeah, it's interesting to note they haven't really brought that up during the current storyline. Mm-hmm. Like, you would have thought that would have came up, how Mandy Rose and Sonya have turned, Sonya turned on her. Like, you would have thought that they would have brought that up, as one of the examples as to how she, pretty much, quote-unquote, carried Mandy Rose. Like, that would have been perfect. I'm like, hey, think back about a year ago. Like, I gave you my opportunity. They let us pick who was going to be the one to go in the match. I gave it to you, and then I almost had you win the darn thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree. That's something they could definitely brought up in today's feud, but they don't always things out really well.
But the writer that probably thought of that probably got fired, so they don't even remember it. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Next up, we have Rey Mysterio getting a win over Samoa Joe. Not much of a match here, just a minute 40. Kind of a controversial endings. Rey would roll up Samoa Joe, get the 1, 2, 3, but as they show the replay several times, Joe's shoulder was clearly off the mat. And that causes Samoa Joe to attack Rey after the match is over.
Yeah, this is back when Dominic was involved too. And yeah, they show the other camera angle, and clearly, his shoulder was up after 1. Like, it wasn't even a near fall.
Yeah.
The referee was out of position. And I know it's to further a storyline, but it made Joe look like more of a monster at the end too. He got busted open the hard way at some point during the match. I think he might have actually broken his nose during that match.
Yeah.
And so that looked cool too. That was a nice spot where, you see the blood. He looks like a fire-breathing dragon, essentially, beating the crap out of Rey afterwards, which is what you want. Joe's a really good, believable heel. So when you have him on that mean streak, it's believable, and it was good TV. Well, pay-per-view or network, or whatever you want to call it.
I feel like, too, Samoa Joe's got, the worst luck. Every time, he gets back and is somewhat pushed, he always has some sort of injury or anything like that. Just can never build any momentum. I know they've used him on commentary a couple of times, but he just can't. Once he gets momentum, it's just taken away from him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've always been a big fan of him. Even going back to TNA. He's Ring of Honor, some of the stuff he's done there. Mm-hmm. He definitely it could be a force if he could just stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we have a steel cage match. We have my man Shane McMahon getting a win over The Miz by escaping the cage in 13 minutes here. This is the whole storyline where they were a tag team, and then Shane McMahon turned on him.
His dad's a baked potato.
Yeah, baked potato face. This is coming off their match at WrestleMania, which Shane won after they did like the suplex off the staging area.
Yep.
But Shane McMahon will get the win by escaping. Miz is trying to pull Shane back into the match, but Shane slips out of his shirt and falls to the floor, and that's how he ends up winning the match.
Yeah, it was nice. It was good creative, I think, to have it go that way, because it gives Shane that, cowardly heel, I won by escaping, and I didn't actually do anything, I just kind of fell.
Yeah.
So I like the way that they came up. It was a very creative ending, and the match itself was good. I mean, even for a guy that's not a trained wrestler, a lot of the stuff that Shane does is really good anyways. And The Miz, I think, is probably one of the more underrated superstars of the last 10 years. You don't have to like The Miz, or you don't like the character of The Miz, but for him to be doing what he's been doing at that level and protecting his body, like, that's one of the things that people, kind of give him flack for, is like, he wrestles too easy. He's too, he doesn't, but he's been healthy. Just like we were talking about Samoa Joe. The Miz doesn't hurt. So, I mean, I think some of that, is a bad rap. I said, I'm not necessarily a Miz fan, but I appreciate what he's been able to do for the amount of time he's been able to do it.
No, totally agree. Next up, we have a match for the Cruiserweight Championship. We have Tony Nese getting a win over Daivari here in about 9.5 minutes. This match was just kind of there for me, kind of probably for filler. Although you don't really have much filler in a 12-match show, but and I just never have been invested in the Cruiserweight title. It hasn't meant that much to me. It's not something I look forward to. So for whatever reason, this match really didn't do anything for me.
Well, and some of that is because that's how the WWE pushes it too. They don't back the Cruiserweight title like it's a legitimate title anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's the Cruiserweight champion right now? I can't tell you without looking.
I can't tell you.
Because they used to be on Raw. They're not even on Raw anymore.
Yep.
It's just 205 Live. And there's so much wrestling out there with AEW and everything else. Like, I don't have time to watch 205 Live. There's nobody even remotely investing for me to watch the show anyways. Like, no offense to any of the guys. I'm sure they're great athletes, but it's like you said, it was just there. And Tony Nese, I actually am a fan of Tony Nese. I like the stuff he's done over the years for a guy that isn't very big, but he's a jack dude and very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And Daivari, again, it was just there. It was one of those things where you kind of just, you're surprised they got as much time as they did. 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes is a lot of time for a match that really no one cared about, unfortunately.
So next up, you have Becky Lynch here. Now, the storyline here is she just won both the Raw and SmackDown women's titles at WrestleMania.
By 2 belts.
Yes, by defeating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte at WrestleMania, even though Ronda Rousey's shoulder was up. Which they don't talk about anymore. They don't mention that.
But they'll mention the Rey Mysterio Samoa Joe one.
Yeah.
So if they want you, they'll make sure you know.
Yeah. So she's defending her title. She's defending both titles here. So first up, she defeats Lacey Evans by submission. That was for the Raw Women's title. In about 8.5 minutes there.
And this is back when Lacey was full heel.
Yes.
He was, the Southern Belle and cleanse all the nasties and all this stuff. And this is back before she kind of flip-flopped to be a babyface now. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit in the present portion of the show. But it wasn't a bad match. You could tell she still wasn't quite as experienced as she is now because it was a little sloppy at times, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. So right after Becky Lynch wins, though, then Charlotte Flair comes out. They kind of played it off like Becky didn't know she was defending her belt back-to-back.
Well, and they played it smart, too, because they had her get ready to leave. She had both her belts. She was, sitting on the apron. She gets up to walk away, and then Charlotte's music plays.
Yep. So Charlotte will actually defeat Becky Lynch here to become the SmackDown Women's title. Lacey Evans will get involved, delivers the women's right, and then Charlotte will hit a big boot to defeat Becky Lynch in about 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was what you expected it to be based on the fact that Becky had just wrestled. You kind of figured that, and they were playing that up too, that no person has ever won two matches in the same show to retain titles ever. So they played that up at the beginning before the Lacey match started. So you just had to assume that one of these matches was going to be a loss, and you kind of figured it was going to be the second match, no matter who it was. You could have put Lacey in that second match, and you realistically, Becky wasn't going to win them both.
Yeah, no, totally agree. But then after the match, Charlotte and Lacey are attacking Becky Lynch. Bayley comes down. Now Bayley was face here, and she's now she's a heel, but back then she was a face.
Full blown hugger, side ponytail Bayley.
Yes. So she comes out, attacks Charlotte, helps Becky, kind of almost knocks Charlotte out by hitting her head against the ring post. She decides to cash in her Money in the Bank contract that she won earlier in the night. She delivers an elbow drop from the top rope, and she wins and becomes your new SmackDown Women's Champion.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, that wasn't even the shortest cash in. Kane a few years back held the Money in the Bank briefcase for like 49 minutes, I think it was.
Something like that, yep.
Yeah, and then he cashed in, and then you have on the flip side of that, Carmella was the longest holder of it, like 287 days.
Oh,
that
wow.
She held the briefcase before she cashed in. Just a side note trivia. Again, we like to try to give you some useless trivia that you could probably not remember, but if it comes to your mind, then cool.
We're putting our stat team to work here, and by stat team I mean Roland and I.
We do the best to at least sound smart.
Yes.
You can Google anything, kids.
Yeah, it's
Google
true. Next up, we're getting ready for Roman Reigns and Elias. There's a segment backstage where Elias hits Roman with the guitar. He comes out and performs a song. He's getting ready to leave. Roman's music hits, attacks him on the ring ramp, and then it's into the ring, and just the match starts, and it's just one spear, and it's over in 8 seconds. Roman Reigns gets the win over Elias.
Yeah, it was literally 8 seconds, and it was spear over.
Yep.
All it was the classic Roman Reigns. I did like when Elias came out, when he sat down. I actually giggled to myself when he said it. He goes, "Yeah, normally I'd be out here with my acoustic guitar, but as you guys just saw, it broke."
That was funny.
And so he was playing with the electric guitar, but I thought it was kind of, it made me chuckle out loud. I was like, yeah, that's good. But yeah, I mean, it kind of at this point too, Elias hasn't really been wrestling much. I mean, he really hasn't still wrestled much. They use him more as a filler piece with music than they do actually wrestling, and he's actually not a bad wrestler. So it's surprising that they haven't utilized his wrestling more.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like they're not sure exactly where they want to go with him. I mean, he's been flip-flopping between the face and the heel for quite a while now. He was full-blown heel then, now he's a face. He's kind of flip-flopped a couple of other times, too, so it seems like they don't really have a clear direction for his character.
I mean, maybe they're trying to get him to catch up to the Big Show for the most flip-flops in history.
Yes, maybe.
Because the Big Show in like one calendar year was like a face and a heel like 3 times.
Yeah. So, all right, moving along, we have a singles match for the Universal Championship. You have Seth Rollins getting a win over AJ Styles in about just under 20 minutes. For me, this was the match of the show.
Yep. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah,
yep.
It was absolutely the match of the show. There was a lot of false finishes. Seth Rollins would eventually end up hitting the stomp to win, but there was just so much action, back and forth action. The crowd was into this match. So to me, this one was the match of the night.
I mean, there was a spot where Rollins went for the stomp. AJ caught him, turned it into the Styles Clash. There was some very creative wrestling going on here. It was everything you would expect these two guys to put into a match. It was great. It definitely. There's no question for me that was the best match on the card. And I think if I had to pick after that would be the Money in the Bank match. We'll get there in a minute, but I thought those two matches for me, some of the stuff they did in the AJ match, AJ and Rollins match, made the show, plain and simple. Because before that match, the card was just meh. And really, it was neat. You had the title swap with Charlotte, and Becky losing at Charlotte, and then Bayley. So I mean, there were some neat things, but there wasn't really like that one match that you're like, ooh, that was good. And that match was the Rollins and AJ Styles match.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Now, to follow that, we have the singles match for the WWE Championship. You have Kofi Kingston here, retaining his title against my boy Kevin Owens, who recently celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday, Kevin, if you're listening. which you're probably not, but it's all right.
You never know. This was back when Kevin Owens tried to get into the New Day because Big E was hurt. He was Big O. That lasted for like 2 weeks. Then he turned. I think too, Kevin Owens, his acting abilities are sometimes overshadowed because he can be one of the more believable characters, not wrestling, but just like outside of wrestling. And I think he's overlooked sometimes for that because when he joined the New Day for those couple of weeks, it was so believable. Like he made it seem like he was in there.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, you mentioned the Big O. That kind of sounds like a character that would be fit for the Attitude Era.
Yeah. Well, it was just funny, like, he's like, Big E, I'll be Big O. Like, it was just, yeah. It actually, if you listen to WEI, it's Glenn Ordway is the Big O. That's what they the sports show with in the Boston area. That's the first thing I think of when I hear Big O. I think of Glenn Ordway. That's the guy on the radio. But I digress.
And our main event for the show is the Money in the Bank ladder match, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, I should say. Brock Lesnar is going to get a win here over Ali. He was not Mustafa Ali here. He's just Ali.
Yeah, he was Mustafa Ali, then he was Ali, now he's Mustafa Ali again.
Yep. Then you have Andrade, who was Andrade Cien Almas at one point. You have Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, who gets to keep both names. Finn Balor, Randy Orton, and Ricochet here. Originally,
Drew McIntyre is so good, he can leave and come back, and he still gets his name. Sami Zayn was supposed to be in this match, but he was attacked earlier in the night, and that was a big storyline throughout the show. They made it seem like it was Braun Strowman, which I think, Braun then claimed he didn't know anything about it, and then the payoff is that clearly it wasn't Braun, it was Brock Lesnar that did it to get into the match. It's what they're trying to get you to think when Lesnar comes out. And before we go any further on this match, I'm going to tell you this match was amazing until Lesnar came out. Mm-hmm. Lesnar came out, ruined the whole match for me. You had a spot where Andrade hit a Spanish fly off the ladder on Ali. That was insane. You had the spot where Andrade did the sunset flip to Finn Balor on the ladder, which was insane. You had the choke slam from the ring to the ladder on Ricochet. I mean, there was so many awesome moves in this match and spots. And then you have Lesnar, the music hits, he comes out, he kills 3 cameramen in his entrance.
Yeah.
If you watch it back, he comes down, pushes the ladder out of the way, and hits 2 cameramen with it. And as Lesnar gets in the ring, you see the doctor run by the ring to go help the cameraman who he just clocked with a ladder.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That was like the first thing I noticed when he came out. I'm like, oh my god.
It's like, oh god, he just killed 2 cameramen. But yeah, no, like I said, I get what they're doing, but you're pretty much spitting in those other 7 guys' faces after they just literally killed themselves for the fans and for a match to have Lesnar come out and spend 1 minute in the ring, and now he's got the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yeah, I couldn't really add anything else to that. I kind of felt the same way. They kind of keep forcing, especially in this era, keep forcing Brock Lesnar to the fans. And the fans don't want to see Brock. Or they want to see more of him, I should say, if he's going to be around.
That's the thing, is that I don't mind Brock if he's there more than 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be in the WWE, be in the WWE. Like, I don't care if you're not at every Raw, but, like, show up every now and again. Yeah,
no, I agree. So, overall, I thought, it was a decent show. I don't think it was one of the better shows. I did like the ladder matches, and especially the Seth Rollins AJ Styles match. That would be the one match I would recommend you go back and watch out of the show. I'll probably give this about a 6.5 rating for on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I was thinking 6. That was my. I think that the Money in the Bank ladder match for the men was probably one of the better ones until they let Lesnar come out and crap all over it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think for what they did and the moves they did, that literally you're having them do moves that don't pay off for anything because you have Lesnar win the damn briefcase. So you got guys out there killing themselves, and Lesnar just gets the thing and climbs the ladder, and that's it. But yeah, no, easily the best match on the card was the Seth Rollins AJ Styles match, and it should be with those 2 guys. So I totally agree. Probably 6-ish for me too, as well.
Cool. All right, so now we're going to transition and give you our predictions of Money in the Bank 2020, which goes down tomorrow night. And
climb the corporate ladder.
Yes, climb the corporate ladder. We'll get into the Money in the Bank matches in a little bit. There's 6 matches to go through here, so not a huge card. I'm assuming the Money in the Bank ladder matches are going to take the majority of the time.
Yeah, and full disclaimer, as we talk about this the day before the pay-per-view, these have long been since recorded.
Yes.
From what I've heard, I don't know if you've heard this, Tim, but from what I've heard, it's going to be somewhat cinematic, kind of like the Boneyard match was. From what I heard, I don't know how true that's going to be, but that's the rumor, anyways.
That's what I heard as well. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a movie. So we'll see. I mean, they were successful doing that at WrestleMania. Let's see if they're successful doing that at Money in the Bank here.
And I would imagine, too, that they're probably not going to have these matches go back-to-back. I would imagine that one match, maybe the women's one, would either be first or second in the night, and then they'll probably close with the men's match, I would think.
No, they're actually they're doing both of them at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're doing they announced that, I think, last week or so. They're actually having both of them simultaneously. So that'll be interesting to see how they, pull that off.
So are you going to have like a split screen?
I'm not sure. I don't know how it's going to work.
That's going to be like, I don't know. I hope the WWE isn't crap on this, because the Boneyard, I keep wanting to call it Graveyard match, that's what it is. But anyway, the Boneyard match was amazing. So hopefully they learned from that and did some stuff in there that is not only cinematic but also wrestling related. And not that the Firefly Funhouse match wasn't cool, because it was for what it was, but there was literally no wrestling in that match.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're smart about it. Like if it's like old school like Nintendo video games where you have like your one screen on the top and one screen on the bottom and you're watching it at the same time, I'll probably just turn it off. But like I hope that's not what they do, because I want to be able to watch the match.
Yeah.
And you would think they'd be smart if they would. I mean, how are they going to fill a pay-per-view with 6 matches if they were to put those quote-unquote simultaneously? That'd be weird, but whatever. We'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let's get going. Let's start with the Fatal 4-Way for the tag team, the Fatal 4-Way tag team match for the SmackDown tag team titles. You have the New Day, which is represented by Big E and Kofi, versus The Miz and Morrison, versus the Forgotten Sons, versus every Fatal 4-Way tag team match has to have the Lucha House Party in it.
Who do you think the second team was in there?
The Miz and Morrison.
Hey, ho, ho.
Yes.
All right, just checking. Just wanted to make sure we get that in there.
See, I think this is going to be the only title switch on the show. We're going to get into the other title matches in a second. So I'm going to go with the Forgotten Sons here. They've been building them up strong the last couple of weeks. I know they got a victory with The Miz and Morrison on SmackDown yesterday, but The Miz actually got the win. So just because I don't see any other title switches happening, I think there is going to be one here. I'll go with the Forgotten Sons.
I'm hoping that this is setting up for the Miz and Morrison to go their separate ways. I really think that Morrison coming back to the WWE, he deserves a singles push, a singles run. Mm-hmm. He's such a good athlete that he could very easily drop into the Intercontinental or the U.S. title picture and even challenge for the bigger belts too. So I'm hoping that they kind of do away with the Miz and Morrison thing. It's served its purpose, but I'm hoping that this is kind of what it's leading to. So I'm going to say they're not going to win. I'm also going to say the Lucha House Party is not going to win. So then that narrows it down to the Forgotten Sons and the New Day. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the New Day will retain, but it's going to set up a program between the Forgotten Sons and the New Day to go forward. I think they don't want to put the title on them yet, but they're going to be strong, so they're not going to be involved in the decision. No matter what happens, the Forgotten Sons will be, cast aside, so that way they can say, hey, we weren't even involved, blah, 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 we just a rematch, whatnot. So I think the New Day are going to retain, and I think that's going to set up a program between the Forgotten Sons and the New Day going forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. To me, this is going to be the match of the night, I think. I'm a big Drew McIntyre fan, and Seth Rollins can go with anybody. So I expect kind of almost similar to the Seth Rollins AJ Styles match we talked about. I can kind of see this match kind of going something similar to that. But I don't see a title change here. I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre retaining.
Yeah, I think so too. They just put the title on Drew. I don't know what the point would be to take it off him right away. And I think with everything going on with the COVID-19 and all this stuff, I don't think it's fair for anybody to lose their title before they've actually got to wrestle in front of fans.
Mm-hmm.
Especially McIntyre, who the fans were so much behind him when all this started. When he made his turn, and the fans were all over it. They loved it. They were with it. And not that, and like you said, I like both McIntyre and Rollins as performers. And even their character, even McIntyre when he was a Scottish psychopath, he was so believable that way too. So yeah, I don't see them changing the title here. I think this will be a very good match, like you said. But yeah, I do not see any reason for them to pick the title up through yet.
Next up, we have the singles match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It is Bayley and Tamina here. I like Tamina and everything, but I don't see them giving the belt to her. I don't know if she is one that can carry the women's division and carry the responsibilities that being a champion entails. And I think Bayley's kind of hot right now. I think they got a lot of momentum with her heel character, and I don't quite see them taking the belt off of her yet. So I'm going to go with Bayley here.
I'm with you there too, and to your point and to what I said for WrestleMania would have been the time to beat Bayley. If you were going to beat Bayley, you beat her at WrestleMania, and you put the title on either Sasha or somebody that you're going to. Tamina, even if she were to win, which I don't think she's going to, she would just be a transitional champion. That's all she would be. She's not even relevant. They just brought her back because they needed another woman. No offense to her, but like she's never been believable in any character other than when she was, kind of the enforcer in Team Bad.
Mm-hmm.
She's never connected with me at all. She doesn't really have any charisma. She's okay as a wrestler. She's not great. Being that she's Snuka's daughter, that probably helps her with the company, I would think.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I see Bayley retaining here too.
And then we have the singles match for the Universal Championship. You have Braun Strowman against Bray Wyatt. Not The Fiend. It's going to be Bray Wyatt here.
It's interesting that you say that because I have a spin on that. So go ahead and continue, but it's interesting that you pointed that out.
Sure. Kind of similar to what we talked about with Drew McIntyre, where they just put the belt on him. They just put the belt on Strowman. I don't see them taking it off Strowman yet. I'm hoping not, so I'm going to go with Braun Strowman here. I'm hoping they're not using him as a transitional champion just to get the belt back on Bray. Had it been The Fiend wrestling, I might have gone a different way here, but since it's Bray Wyatt, I'm going to go with Braun Strowman retaining.
Yeah, I'm also going to say that, and here's my thought on that. I think that Braun Strowman will beat Bray Wyatt, which will then lead to him getting a rematch as The Fiend, as the storyline being, this is Bray trying to bring Braun Strowman home, trying to go easy on him because he was his family member. Mm-hmm. And then when Braun beats Bray, it's going to make The Fiend reappear to then have a rematch as literally saying, screw you, I'm going to just kill you now. I gave you the chance, you didn't, and now The Fiend is going to come and take you. So that's what I'm hoping they're going to do. So I totally agree. I think it's going to be Braun Strowman beating Bray Wyatt, which will then set up The Fiend, which will then hopefully set up the Roman Reigns Fiend thing, which I think they want to do still, maybe SummerSlam.
Yep.
So that's what I think they're going to do. So Braun will kind of be a transitional champion, but for a purpose, I think. And it makes sense if they do it the way that I think they're going to do it.
So next up, we have the Money in the Bank ladder matches to talk about. Let's start with the men's here. You have Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and AJ Styles.
Can we all agree that Otis is like the odd man out in this match?
Yes, I agree.
Right. And I'm not I like him, but he's never really had a singles push at all.
No, not really.
So yeah, it's interesting that he's in the match. But anyways, continue.
So I think, like we said, it's hard to kind of predict these matches because we're not exactly sure what style they're going to do this in. Is it going to be wrestling based? Is it more cinematic based? Is it a combination of the two, which is that's kind of what we're hoping for. So it's kind of hard to predict. I'm going to go with Aleister Black here, just because I think he's due for a push. They've been kind of sort of pushing him a little bit here and there, but he hasn't really taken that next step, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to take that next step by winning this contract. And so yeah, that's why I'm going to go with Aleister Black.
I am also going to go with Aleister Black, but I'm going to go with it because he didn't win the Royal Rumble, which I had predicted. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say that this is where he finally gets some, like you said, some of his push as a believable character that might be able to pursue the championship.
No, I agree. And then
I don't see any point in Ray winning. I don't see any point in Corbin winning. Yeah. I don't see any point in Otis winning. I don't see any point in Daniel Bryan winning. He could. I just don't see the point. Now that then leaves AJ and Aleister Black. AJ I can see winning just because he's, back from the dead, quote unquote.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I think Aleister Black, it makes the most sense to have him get the contract.
Yeah, when I was before the show and I was going through the predictions, I was between AJ Styles and Aleister Black, but I kind of think AJ Styles is more of the obvious choice because the way they played up his return on Raw.
And he doesn't need the briefcase.
No.
So no, I think they need to go back to using the briefcase for people that could use it to catapult, to make new stars versus having already established stars win it. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no point in having Daniel Bryan win it. I mean, he doesn't need it to challenge for the title. He's Daniel Bryan.
No.
Just like AJ, he doesn't need it. I mean, maybe they'll put it on him because they want to put it on him, but he doesn't need the title. Or the briefcase, rather.
So for the women, we have Asuka versus Shayna Baszler versus Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Carmella. I'm going to pick Shayna Baszler here just because she had a lot of momentum going into WrestleMania. They had her lose to Becky Lynch, and I kind of feel since then her momentum's kind of died a little bit. But I think I think she's somebody that they're going to really push in the future, and I think this is a step forward to getting her momentum back. So I'm going to pick Shayna Baszler.
We're going to be on the same page here, and I'll explain the reason I think Shayna wins is it puts her back on track with Becky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the reason why they've been kind of keeping her away from Becky for a little while since WrestleMania.
Yep.
For a bit. So, yeah, I think that's her path back to Becky. Because I think they realize that her and Becky can have a good match together with the storyline. So I think they're planning maybe a SummerSlam thing with them, too. I would think that, maybe it'll be sooner or after that. But it's tough because Carmella's already won it once. And it looks like Asuka's not really in the Kabuki Warriors really much anymore. I don't know what they're doing there. That's kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
So I don't think she really needs it. Plus, she doesn't really have the. I mean, I guess during the no fans show, she has actually done pretty well. So I mean, I guess I could see him doing her. Dana Brooke's just there. Again, no offense to Dana Brooke. I could see them putting on Lacey too. I think that to me, the two it comes down to are Lacey and Shayna. Nia Jax doesn't need it. She's a monster. She can just challenge for whatever she wants, whenever she wants. So there's no real point giving it to her. So, yeah, I think it's Shayna Baszler, and I think it's to lead her back to Becky.
So those are our predictions for Money in the Bank 2020. I think we agreed on every match except for the tag team match, if I'm not mistaken here.
Yep, we did. It's the sad thing is some of it's a little bit predictable, so maybe they'll surprise us. They seem to, just when you think they're going to do A, they do B, C, and D. So, maybe there's something that we're missing that they're going to do or something that they see. But as far as I'm concerned, I feel like I got all of them right in my, going into it. So we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. So we are kind of working on a topic for next week. We're working out some things. I don't know if we want to tell them exactly what we're working on because we're not sure if it's going to come through or not.
Well, I think we'll leave it as we're trying to get a watch along together. If you've listened to one of our previous episodes before, we had Jonathan Life on there, where our idea is to have him watch a match with us and kind of give us a wrestler's insight to like why moves were done then, why this person did that, and kind of watch it with us. Instead of having you guys have to watch a show with just the two of us.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you a little bit something different than some of the traditional podcasts. We're still trying to set that up. We don't know if he's available yet. We've reached out to him. Hopefully he will be. If not, we'll have a totally different topic, and I'm sure we'll come up with it. Because there's no point in us doing the watch along by ourselves for you guys to watch it, because that doesn't really give you any entertainment value besides listening to us talk about it while watching it.
Yeah.
So, but if we have somebody that is a wrestler, maybe they can give you the insight to make you want to watch it and say, oh, wow, that's why they did this, or this is what I would have done instead of this, or, to kind of pick the brain of a wrestler,
Yep, so that's what we're working on, so hopefully that will come through for you next week. If not, though, we will have something hopefully entertaining for you instead. So stay tuned and tune into Money in the Bank and see how wrong or right we're going to be. Hopefully we're more right than wrong. And so tune in to us next week. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Pulis.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.